Hello, it's Monstrous Monday and Monstrous May, so I decided I'd give you a little preview of Restless Dreams of Darkness here. That's my favorite monster, is Glace, the demon on the cover here. Um, I'm going to read from chapter 5 for you, which is the introduction of the character Fire, and we'll see what happens, shall we? Glace sat in the middle of his den with a bowl of water. Water was precious here in the underground wasteland where they lived. He had made a trip all the way to the mortal surface world for it, and to check on his mortal pet. Talent had settled in a town where he was safe, and had been quite eager to see Glace. It was a pity Glace hadn't had more time to waste there. He had more important things to do. He had to figure out where the fire-throwing spawn had gone. He adjusted the stone bowl until the water inside it sat level. He picked up the small leather bag sitting next to him on the floor and pulled open the ties. Sticking 2 fingers inside, he pulled out just a pinch of bone-white dust. Then he sprinkled it over the bowl of water. The words of the spell came out of his mouth in a harsh whisper, and, like most ancient magic, they drew darkness. Dark power surged inside the cave, covering it in shadows that raced over the ground to him and bled into the bowl. "Where are you?" Glace muttered as the water rippled and turned black. Slowly, the darkness cleared and showed him the spawn running for his life across the red sands. Glace knew every landmark in this tortured land. He'd hunted his own kind for the sisters for nearly 1,000 mortal years. He hissed when he saw the brother that was chasing the spawnling. Sarsat, Shanskir's blood brother, Sarsat's twin. Glace snarled and kicked over the water bowl with an angry hoof as he stormed out of the den. Sarsat had been trying to replace him for years. There was no way he was going to allow that little serpent to bring the queen his prize and win her favor. He dropped down on all fours and leapt across the ruins and out into the sands. He knew where they were. There was a ravine not far from the main ruins, and he recognized it in the vision. As he loped along the top of the ridge, he kept glancing down here and there to see if he could spot them below. When he spotted them, they were both going full speed. They jumped and slid off rocks, bumping into outcroppings in their haste. Glace was faster than both of them. That was one of the advantages of his age. The more diluted the brothers' blood got, the more they inherited mortal aspects, and speed was something they tended to lose. He used his tail to propel him forward faster and pulled ahead of them. They hadn't seen him yet, though Sarsat should have sensed him by now. Too caught up in the chase? Another reason he didn't like Sarsat. He skittered down the side of the ravine just in time to dive between the spawnling and Sarsat. He stood to his full height. Throwing out his wings, he roared at Sarsat. The display of dominance made Sarsat slide to a stop to avoid slamming into him. The spawnling dove into the nearest hole in the wall to hide. Glace didn't pay the spawn much mind yet, beyond noting of where he'd gone. He snarled at Sarsat. "Nice of you to find my prey for me, Sarsat. I will take him now." Sarsat hissed. His tail lashed back and forth, and his fury raged in his red eyes. "This is my prey." Glace shook his head and rubbed the red mark across his pale chest. "The little bastard struck me. He is mine to kill. Back off, Lester. Remember your place." Sarsat cowered a bit at the harsh tone. By custom, he had to obey. Glace was the dominant brother. But submit he did not. With an angry snarl, he launched himself at Glace instead. The impact drove Glace to the ground, caught off guard and shocked. He hadn't expected such bold betrayal. He threw his hands up to grab Sarsat's, but he got 2 fingers sliced off for the effort. He howled in pain and lashed his tail around Sarsat's wrist to drag him off. Sarsat kept driving at him, slashing, razor claws drawing blood, teeth sinking into flesh whenever they had the chance. Glace fought back. He had always been better at offense than defense. He had to get the upper hand again. A lucky strike from Sarsat hit him across the eye and he lost vision in it. Enraged, he threw all his weight at Sarsat to try and knock him to the sands. Sarsat was bigger, though, and all Glace managed to do was make him skid a little. "Today you die," bellowed Sarsat. "Today I take my rightful place as the queen's favored." Glace had no choice. He had to dive away. He didn't run. He climbed the wall to launch himself at Sarsat, but without both his eyes, his aim was off, and he caught a hoof to the chest instead, sprawling him flat on the ground and out of breath. A blast of magic hit Sarsat straight in the chest as he leapt. Sarsat screamed, and he hit the opposite wall with such force that he crumpled. Glace lay there. He caught his breath and tried to figure out what had just happened. Then he looked over to see the fire-throwing spawn standing there with flames dripping from his fingertips. Was he next? If the spawn was smart, he'd finish them both off. The spawn didn't move, though. He just stood there with fire dripping off of him as he watched Glace. A glance at Sarsat revealed he was out cold at least, dead at best. Glace dared not hope for the latter, as much as he wanted to. He couldn't go over there and kill Sarsat for his betrayal. He got up and dusted himself off. Then he looked the spawn over. The spawnling met his gaze, unafraid. Then the flame started to dissipate. The spawn was breathing hard, and his eyes had a glazed look to them. Glace smirked when he recognized the look. The spawnling was in a frenzy. It happened to the young spawn within the first week of reaching maturity. They went into a mad breeding frenzy and mated with anything they could. Glace looked down at the stumps of his fingers, then felt the scratch on his eye. Both were bad wounds. Both he could heal if he played with the spawn. The last time he played with a frenzy spawn had been so long ago. Sandskier. He would create a magical bond to the spawn if he did it. Healing the wound seemed more important than worrying about that. He snarled and stormed over to the more than willing spawn. It took several robust hours for Glace to wear the spawn out of his frenzy. Both his eye and his hand healed in the process, though, and so did all the other marks Sarsat had been lucky enough to score. He lay there in the shallow den with the exhausted spawn. He reached over to trail his fingers through the young brother's dark purple hair. The tips of it were burnt red from the heat of the wasteland. So much for the plans of turning this one over to the queen. He knew he should rip the spawn's heart out right now and take it to the queen while he had the spawn too tired to fight him. He liked that they were bonded, though. The bond to Sandskier had made Sandskier extremely loyal to him. It would make this one loyal as well. And he hadn't been bad to play with. A spirited, feisty, angry little thing. He tugged on the spawn's tail hard. "What's your name, spawnling?" The spawn snarled at him and pulled his offended tail away. "Fire." "Of course it is." Glace rolled his eyes. "Great. The spawn was named after his forbidden magic. If I let you live, will you obey me?" Fire lay on his belly. He lifted his face just enough to rest his chin on his folded arms as his tail started to lash in a lazy sort of way. "My other choice is death?" "Exactly." Glace smirked and traced a claw over Fire's face. "I like you, though. I'll make it quick." Fire scowled at him. "I think I would prefer not to die." Fire had one purple eye and one blue. What an odd-looking brother. He must have gotten it from the mortals. But he wasn't weak. Glace knew that from the way he'd fought before in the rough tumble they'd just had. Glace got up and motioned for Fire to follow him. "Fine. Come along, then. You're my new pet. Don't show anyone that flashy fire trick, though. They'll kill you." Fire gave him a suspicious look, but got up and followed. Sarsat was nowhere to be found. Glace hissed with irritation as he climbed out of the ravine. He stared over the blowing sands. No sign of Sarsat. "Glace!" Sandskier came loping up to them, but skidded to a stop when he saw Fire. Glace raised a brow. Was that actual jealousy that crossed Sandskier's face? Delicious. He liked jealousy. It was cooling and exciting. He smirked and slid his tail up and down Fire's bare leg in a possessive way. "Sands, this is Fire." "You bonded with him," Sandskier muttered and gave Glace an annoyed glare. "You just mate with whatever fancies you at the time, don't you?" Fire curled his wings around himself and looked rather uncertain. Fire's uncertainty was also delicious. Glace decided he liked this chaotic mess of emotions. Your blood brother attacked me, Sans. Sarsat. Sanskier stiffened and stared at Glace. Took off 2 of my fingers. Glace wiggled his regenerated fingers at Sanskier. And took out my eye. The spawner was in a frenzy and I used it to heal myself. The bond was just a side effect. Sanskier slid closer to Glace on the opposite side from Fire and lowered his voice to a near whisper. I thought you were going to kill that one. Don't be jealous, Sans. I like pets. They won't let me keep my mortal one. This is the next best thing. Plus, he knows tricks. Glace shrugged and started walking back towards the Queen's fallen city. Sanskier gave Fire a displeased hiss. Fire just smirked back at him. Glace picked back a laugh. This was going to entertain him at least, for the moment. Then he remembered Sarsat. He'd have to deal with that later. No one got away with betraying him, especially not his second in command. And that was Chapter 5 of Restless Dreams of Darkness. Thanks for joining me. If you'd like the book, it's on Amazon. It's on Kindle and Kindle Unlimited, and you can get a paperback like this with a beautiful cover. So thank you for joining me. We'll see you later.